Hi, I'm Alicia Abendroth, and this is Tridge Agri-insider, your agri-food for thought podcast where we talk about anything and everything agri-food supply chain, brought to you by Tridge. Maria Mateo Iborra, co-founder of Ibisa Network, is combating risk in the agri-food supply chain. Her insurtech startup delivers customized parametric insurance for climate-related challenges. But why is risk such a big deal? Well, with the rise of climate events, farmers' risk is at maximum level. If the risk becomes unmanageable for farmers, we could face global food security issues. Well, thank you for joining Agri-insider today, Maria. How are you?
I'm very good. How about yourself?
Doing well, thank you. So I thought, you have a really interesting background. You're a Spanish-born climate insurtech specialist with an agricultural background, living in Luxembourg, right? Um, you've been in this industry for a long time. Can you kind of give us a snapshot view of where you think the industry is today? What are some things you're seeing in the industry? I guess, what is the state of the industry from your perspective?
If you look at investments in agriculture, let's start from this point of view. I think we are seeing one of the biggest moments in agriculture investment from public, from private, and you just need to look at who is the biggest farmer in the world. That is Bill Gates. So that is saying a lot about how, we all know how important agriculture is, but I think this, feeding the world in the current conditions is definitely everyone's priority. So I think agriculture is definitely a very exciting segment at the moment, receiving a lot of attention.
No, I agree completely. I think this sector has really found a lot of traction in the last couple of years. Specifically, I think I see some correlation even with COVID-19. I think we've had a lot of changes happening in the sector holistically that are driving a lot of change, especially currently. Um, Maybe just to kind of back up a bit, and we can get into some of the trends and things just now, but what got you into agriculture? How did you find this industry?
Well, I think I was born a bit in the industry, so I'm coming from an agriculture family. And since I was a kid, I started like summers working on the field and other people. But I also experienced kind of different weather calamities during this period. In Spain, it was hail, it was droughts, and I think seeing how vulnerable farmers are when they are faced to this is an experience that really marked me. And after moving to a different industry and getting a lot into technology, I ended up coming to the roots and trying to make a use of my knowledge to improve this feeling of alone in the dark that farmers have after devastating climate events.
Yeah, those climate events, I've experienced them firsthand myself at a farm level. They can completely destroy a crop, and I think what you're doing, the work you're doing, is extremely important. So you said you grew up in agriculture. Can you share a little bit more? I mean, what kind of farm, what kind of life was that?
So basically, in my family, we are coming from several generations here I'm from the south of Spain.
Wow.
So it's mostly in citrics, so lemons, but also almonds, and now there is more and more things in greenhouse, but mostly lemons, almonds.
So what generation would you be if you went back to the family business?
Well, I did not go that far, but at least the last 4 generations are.
I mean, okay, 4 generations is already a long time to be in a family business. Yeah, I think, a lot of countries, emerging markets, they're starting from complete scratch. So you have really, truly, I think in 4 generations, what I call a legacy business. Is that kind of common for where you are in Spain? Are there a lot of family businesses?
I think in agri, I would say yes, but not in other type of businesses. No.
Yeah, no, I agree. So what makes you passionate then about the industry? And you kind of touched on this. You mentioned, you saw the climate events firsthand at your family business or at the farm that you grew up on. Maybe do you have some examples or a time maybe in that journey that really highlights this passion of yours to work in climate tech?
Basically, the thing is, I'm an engineer, so I study telecommunication, and I'm also very passionate about space and how space can help the people, and especially everything around observing the Earth, so the remote sensing. So I think what makes me very passionate is, to see that there are technologies that can really help improving the situations in a very smooth and easy manner. We just need to use them. So I think what makes me very passionate is first is because it's my in my roots, and then there was a problem, and I never found, a peace of mind. Let's say, is this sick of peace of mind, bringing peace of mind to people in the same situation, coupled with finding a way to somehow uh, move the needle in this in this journey.
Yes, moving the needle in a small way to contribute to hopefully a bigger change. So what I mean, and maybe this links right back, and let's maybe talk about Ibisa Network for a second. So maybe you could just highlight, what does Ibisa Network do, and what impact are you trying to leave behind with Ibisa?
So, basically, Visa is a climate insurtech, but the highlight probably is the peace of mind. So we are trying to bring peace of mind to farmers so that we can help them becoming more resilient against climate change. So what we are doing is end-to-end solutions to bring innovations in the insurance angle with products that are very simple to understand, that operate in a very simple manner, so that farmers don't need to have this cumbersome claim process, but are painless, smooth process after an event. So when event occurs, the farmer doesn't need to worry. They will just receive the payout. Stop. So the idea with Ibisa is really use technology to innovate in insurance to bring peace of mind to farmers. And when something happens, insurance is part of the solution and not part of the problem.
I love that. Insurance is part of the solution and not part of the problem. So for those, because we have a really broad range of listeners, some who've dealt with some of these problems right on the farm, all the way up to those who are just trying to get a flavor of the industry. So why, maybe just to break it down very simply, why is insurance so important for the industry today? And what does the current process without Ibisa Network look like?
So insurance is a powerful tool for farmers to de-risk. So I think in every business you have risk management. I mean, you have risk management. Agriculture is the same, and insurance is an underused important tool to de-risk, and especially to de-risk events that are outside the control of people, like climate, because farmers have evolved a lot in farm management, in pest and disease control, in becoming more clever when planting, harvesting, so digitalizing the farm, everything. But there are some elements that are outside our control, and these events are climate related mostly. So with insurance, there is a powerful tool there to help farmers be more resilient and de-risk their investment and their work. So what we are trying to work is to bring insurance to the next level, so that on top of their attributes of insurance, it becomes easy, transparent, timely, painless, and this is what we bring by using index-based or parametric insurance type of products that we can explain a bit more. But yeah.
Okay. So what you're saying is, if I kind of understand correctly, the current industry, though, they use insurance, so it's an important tool, but like we all also experience at, our family, family homes is a good example. We have an insurance policy, something happens, a lot of insurance companies try to fight the claim, or they'll want to only cover 70%, or they'll find a loophole, and we don't need to name any names, right? We don't need to kind of bash any providers, but I think it's really relatable to even just everyday people, this kind of struggle that we might face with insurances that cover anything, right? Health insurance. I mean, we were just a family anecdote at the dentist, and the copay, in addition for a root canal for one of my family members was like 800 euros, right? And you just wonder, well, the tooth can't rot. How does this? How can it be like this? How can it be that we still have to pay nearly 1,000 euros to help the insurance cover something that should be, in my eyes, standardized, right? And I think you see this most likely in agriculture as well. And you might have a more unique perspective from Spain and also Europe. I know you have some global presence, but I mean, let's dive deeper into what inefficiencies are you solving with Ibisa Network in this existing, fairly at times hesitant insurance, let's put it that way, with these hesitant insurance providers. What is the problem that you're really solving within this current existing system?
Well, maybe before, on top of that, this is for the people that have access to insurance. And today,
Right.
the penetration of agri-insurance globally is around 5% for emerging economies, and around 20% for 20-25% for developed countries. I mean, these numbers are really scary, and these numbers, they come from two angles. One, in emerging economies, is a bit caused by the financial literacy or lack of financial literacy, but also because in emerging economies, majority of farmers are small scale. So to build for insurers to provide products that are not loss making for farmers that are very small, with very small land in very remote places, in a traditional way of insurance, this is not possible. And that's why there is the offer of this type of products is very, very limited in emerging economies. So this is one, the first aspect on how technology can change the picture. And on one hand, by using satellite data, so by using remote sensing and satellite data, we are agnostic to the fact that if the field is in a remote place or in a near place, we have data from all over the world. So there is no limitation in terms of location or size, because we don't need to have ground data and we don't need to go to this location at any given time. So on one hand, that helps on designing products. So we can design products using satellite data and based on the historical data. Like we look at the last 20, 30 years of data to see how often an event happened, how severe. And based on this risk profile, then we can build a product, price it. So this is one thing, that we can build products for clients, for places where before was not possible. So like market opening. And from an operational standpoint, so once the product is there, we automate everything also by using satellite data. So when the product is defined, let me put you an example. Like in the Philippines, we have a typhoon cover, and this is based on daily rainfall and daily wind speed. So we have some limits that we call triggers, where if the amount of rainfall is reaching these limits, that correlates with an event like a typhoon, and then we automatically detect and automatically pay. So the farmer will not need to file a claim. Nobody will need to go to the field to do an assessment and then come back, do the file, wait for a period of time that can be between some months to a year or more. If they are not in agreement, there will be an adjustment of the claim. So it can be a very administrative, time-consuming, and worrisome process. While by working on the parametric insurance, from a parametric insurance product design with satellite data, all this is removed because it's designed based on the past data with satellites, and then it's operated with these limits that we set based on the profile of a particular place. And if something happened, then it's automatically detected and it triggers a payout without any intervention from the farmer. So it should be in their account in some days.
So, okay. So now my question is, and I already gave the case study of the, dental providers who don't want to pay for full dental care. What is the benefit for the insurance companies? Because this sounds too good to be true for the farmer side, right? I think part of the reason why I personally don't even file claims is because I have to get a PhD in their system and processing before I can even file a claim in my personal life, right? So, eliminating all of this bureaucracy, standardizing processes. I mean, you talked about like a risk scale and all these things. I mean, what is the benefit for insurance providers and how are you managing those strategic partnerships?
So at the end, data is knowledge. and so by analyzing, when insurance companies do products in a traditional way, there is a bit of uncertainty. So there is not a good understanding on the risk, on the probability of an event happening. It's everything more broad and wide, and is based on the loss of large numbers. If I have a loss here, probably I will not have a loss there. So it's, the uncertainties are higher. While in index insurance, so using satellite data, using data, past data, to model risks and to have a good understanding of the risk, especially in events as complex as climate. This gives the insurers more certainty about what to expect. In insurance, this is called the loss ratio. So the amount of premium I get compared to the amount of payouts I give. There should be a good balance because, of course, it's not about making the insurers go bankrupt. So there needs to be a balance between this loss ratio, between premium that come and payout that goes, and having a good understanding when designing products on what is this loss ratio in a period of time. This gives insurers certainty. So I think, mobilizing capital with certainty is easier than with uncertainty. So this is one thing. The other thing is that by cutting dramatically admin costs, they can do more of what they do best, that is placing money into risk, taking risk in a more efficient manner. So they are saving on human, on labor costs and admin processes, and focusing on managing, their balance sheets, their risk-taking component of the business. So at the end, it becomes more cost efficient, and they can focus more on the risk, on their core. So this opens, a bigger business to insurers because, as I was saying, before this type of products, they could not address a big part of the population. With this type of products, they can address a bigger part of the population, so their business can grow multiple X because now they can reach more people. So I think there is a number of benefits there. So bigger business opportunity and bigger understanding of the risk they are onboarding. So I think these two are the main.
Yeah, so it sounds like, and I'm starting to, because insurance is a very new space for me. I mean, I've been a taker of insurance, but I've never worked in insurance, right? So what I'm kind of understanding is you'll give more access to further reach for insurance providers, but also more data to place more intelligent premiums on suppliers. So, for example, before maybe they were insuring a high risk region with extreme typhoon risk at a very low premium, not knowing the frequency and the data behind this location or geography, right? But then they were overcharging other places with very, very low risk, where there's almost no climate events, or, these are the kind of things. So you start optimizing, it sounds like, the premiums and almost make them, and I don't know if this is me stretching, but more fair. Could that be like it's a more fair system through what you're providing?
That's the objective, definitely.
Okay. That's really interesting. So how did you learn all of this? I mean, because you came from the farming background, you started a climate tech, agri-tech, insurtech startup. But I mean, what was the path between point A, farm in Spain, and where you are today?
I mean, I love to learn new things. I think I've been learning constantly all the time, and definitely since I started Ibisa, the learning has been exponential. But as I'm an engineer by trade. I've been in the satellite and space industry for around 15 years. When another technology that I love, blockchain, started, I also deep dive into it and work in different projects. And at some point, I realized that what I wanted was to use these technologies and apply them to help the agriculture sector. And I say, okay, but I have no clue about insurance. What do I do?
Okay.
So I think it was, it's like surround yourself with the things, with the people that have the knowledge you don't have. And I got to meet two co-founders that are coming from the insurance sector. One from the more technical angle, that is the risk angle. So one of my co-founders is an actuary, and the other co-founder was coming more from a business angle, from an agri-insurance business angle. So we kind of blended all very well.
Oh, that's really interesting. So you picked the right team to kind of compensate. And you guys have been doing this, the three of you, for 5 years now, right?
Since
It's been about
19, yeah, since 2019. Yeah.
okay. So, I mean, what has that journey looked like? I mean, 5 years almost, or since 2019, of doing this. What is it like being an ag tech founder or an insurtech? I don't know. Do you identify more as an insurtech company or agri tech? What is your identity?
I think it's more insurtech. I will define us
Okay.
more as an insurtech. So, I mean, like every startup, it has been very bumpy. But probably we are, even more, because we are doing a lot of complex stuff together. Like, agriculture is a very scary market for people. If you combine that with insurance, that is a very unknown with space. It's like we are at the intersection of three challenging markets. So finding, simplifying our story, simplifying what we do, convincing people on betting on us for agriculture in emerging markets. It has been a challenging journey, but a very rewarding one. So bumpy, but rewarding.
I love that. So, you've touched on this a couple times already, and I want to dig deeper. You mentioned, 5% of emerging economies have access to insurance. You just touched on it again. You said, it's really rewarding to help some of these communities. You mentioned places like Singapore. I know in previous discussions we've talked about India. So what are some of these foreign projects you're working on? Maybe you have a case study you can share that also highlights a bit of this bumpy road, even that you're insinuating, because it's definitely not easy to do what you're doing.
Yes, and the thing is that every case, at the end, we are always looking to the same parameters. So it's always about rain, wind, temperature, but it's so broad. At the same time, is, for example, we are doing a countrywide typhoon product in the Philippines. So we are covering the entire Philippines, and at the moment we are protecting more than 200,000 people and growing fast there. In India, we have launched very interesting insurance product, one for the dairy sector. So in summer, dairy cows produce around 30% less milk, and with a heat wave, this drop in yield is even more pronounced. So we did an insurance product to compensate dairy farmers for this loss of income due to heat. We have done products all across India for unseasonal rainfalls, for multiple crops. We are also doing very specific analysis for some crops like vanilla in Madagascar, barley in India, coconut in the Philippines. So we are looking at it from a perspective of, okay, let's understand the effect on climate on a particular commodity or value chain, and see what type of products will really make a difference for the value chain, not only for the farmer, but the entire value chain. Because normally we only see the farmer. It's like the point of the iceberg, and they get so much pressure in general from the entire supply chain, and the risk they are facing us are very disproportionate compared to risk reward ratio is very bad for farmers compared to other players in the value chain. So we are also trying to involve more players in the value chain to again be part of the solution. And that's one of the reasons why we are also opening the spectrum in many countries, many crops, to work with as many cases as possible to find, there is always first movers. Like in India, we had overwhelming success with this dairy heat stress product. And this is because there is a real market need with people understanding that they have a problem and understanding they need a solution and appreciating insurance. So we keep looking for these opportunities.
Yeah, I really think it's amazing that you didn't just say, "Hey, I'm going to do this," but work with really established markets that understand insurance and just, where it's very turnkey, we just plug in. But you also decided to take this route of education and restructure in emerging markets. I mean, that in itself is a whole nother challenge because I'm assuming a lot of the conversations start with, first of all, why is insurance important, right? So it's really beautiful that you guys have done that and really taken on these challenges. So how does that work from a kind of practical standpoint? Are you traveling to these countries regularly? Are you doing educational seminars? Are you working mostly with organizations that handle that for you? Just from a strategic partnership standpoint, how have you managed to tackle these foreign markets?
So, I mean, our company is headquartered in Luxembourg, but we do also have a company in India, and we have people in Asia. We have people in Africa at the moment in these two continents. So we have local presence, but definitely we cannot do the educational part and awareness part ourselves to individual farmers. So we work with like-minded organizations, and it's a bit approach of the train the trainer. So we work with partner organizations that have a mandate to increase financial literacy, to help farmers in becoming more productive, and they are doing a lot of work in this respect. So we make sure we are providing them all they need to do this, and of course in the more B2B angle. So when we are working with big cooperatives or ingredients companies or banks, then of course it makes sense that we do directly this job of explaining why insurance and what type. But at the individual level, we work with partner organizations that have this mandate.
Yeah, okay. No, that makes a lot of sense, and I think that allows for mutual synergy and really easy rollout in that sense. So, kind of, you've mentioned the word risk. I think I didn't count yet, but probably 100 times in this call alone. And I think, you said this yourself. Insurance providers are investing into risk, and you just said something also really fascinating. You had said that there's disproportionate risk in the supply chain of food and agri. My question to you would be, what how would you define some of these issues around risk, and how would you, if you could change the industry, at a snap of a finger, what would you like to, and I know that's impossible, but let's just play out the scenario of a dream scenario, how would you potentially try to solve this? And because I think it plays a lot into what you're doing at Ibisa is, you built this startup because you recognize these risk problems. So maybe what when I say risk and also this disproportionate risk, what does that mean to you, and how would you solve it, or how are you trying to solve it?
Mm-hmm. So I mean that's a huge of a problem, but when I was also a kid, I used to be in the negotiation of selling of the lemons. So we would say, okay, the market is like 1 kilo of lemons will be, I don't remember exactly because inflation appeared, but imagine that we say, okay, we sell lemons per kilo in 20 cents. 20 cents is 1 kilo. And I was, young and naive. So then I was going to the supermarket and I was seeing the same kilo at 1.5 euro. And I was saying, 1.5 minus 20 cents, where is this 1.3 going? And I think this relates today, where we see that the farmers have most of the risk, but they get the the less margin on what the consumer will pay of a good. If you look at the supply chain, the rest of the chain has other ways of de-risking. If today the lemons of Spain are less goods or whatever, they can buy from another country. So there is always another supplier in another place, typically. So there is a way to de-risk, or food companies can buy options. So they have ways of de-risking, but the farmer has no way to de-risk themselves against the drought. So I think now, of course, there is a trend changing fast with everything around responsible sourcing and resilient supply chains that are going to change the dynamics there, because sourcing will be tied. Sourcing will become less flexible.
Mm-hmm.
And by becoming less flexible, the risk that the farmer has will be more noticeable for the person buying, for the company buying. So I think at that point there will be a bit of change. But what we are trying is to accelerate also this change, like for example in contract farming transactions, where in the same moment you have input providers, you have financial institutions with loans, or the same corporates giving credits, and the procurement of a commodity, and all this is happening in the same moment,
Mm-hmm.
let's say. And this could be a perfect moment for all the stakeholders to share risk, and not load everything into the farmer. For example, just thinking, dreaming forward. So this is something that we are trying to discuss with the industry, because that will de-risk. That will remove a bit of the burden on the farmer, at the same time making the entire chain more resilient. So removing risk from the different parts of the chain. At the moment, the pain is not acute enough in some parts of the chain, but I think with the evolution of supply chains, this will become mainstream. So this is one element. And moving into a different angle, Another thing that we do a lot is to partner with distribution players that are already very rooted into the market, and we do a lot of embedded insurance, so products that are attached to another service, and sachet. So this is very cheap insurance products with very low cover, but that is a very good way to give a taste of insurance, to discover insurance, not by awareness, but by actual practice, to say,
Yeah.
okay, if this is just, a 2% on top of what I pay, let me try it to see what happened. And we have a lot of good experience in launching these products and then becoming a bigger opportunity for the policyholders, but also for the industry. So I think there are two aspects in what you
Yeah.
mentioned. One is like a mindset change, but this take time, and the other is a much more uh, you know today's opportunity that is with embedded insurance and with low ticket insurance to demonstrate the value of something with a in a very affordable manner.
So this kind of this low barrier insurance that you spoke of, and you mentioned it's implemented with established players, can, just for clarification purposes, does that equate to like a retail buyer, for example? Would you work on, so that's the angle you're working on, is the actual upstream side of the supply chain?
Yes, for example, with a credit provider, so microfinance institutions or a bank giving input loans, agri loans, this could be one. An input provider selling agriculture inputs, an agri-tech providing market linkage services to farmers.
So we haven't found the incentive yet for the actual buyers who are causing some of the risk issues, right? We're still working on the peripheral, because one thing, and thank you for clarifying, because it to me shows an issue that I think about a lot, which is, there's kind of two options. There's one, we take the supply chain as it is today and we try to massage however we can, right, and make it better. So what you're doing is a great way. You're working with the actual issue, and you're saying, hey, we're going to de-risk by providing better insurance technology, right? Or you're working with these input providers and you're bringing in solutions with existing partners, right? But the other, and it's a much more radical thought process, is how do we actually look at restructuring the supply chain, right? And actually decluttering the supply chain, making it more resilient, spreading some of that risk. And, we don't have to have the answers to that today in the podcast. But I think, you raise a really good point, because we have to make this decision in agriculture, food and agri supply chain specifically. Do we hold on to what we've been doing and try to optimize and improve, or do we kind of go down the path of maybe more radical change, which might then happen through policymakers or other institutions? And I don't know, do you have anything to add to that? I don't know if that was triggering anything, but it's just, yeah, you brought that
Yeah,
into light.
I think this change is happening, and as you just say, it's also driven by policymakers, because now there is more. I mean, in Europe, there is this new directive also, and all around ESG and responsible sourcing, and this is happening. I mean, there is no doubt that this is happening. From our angle is to bring the insurance perspective early on, so that people identify it as a tool in this process of changing. But this is definitely happening. We just want to be early in the game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think insurance is definitely going to be a major milestone into achieving what we call like the de-risk of agriculture. So just one last question on this topic. What when you said responsible sourcing, and you said it's linked to ESG and a lot of the sustainability initiatives, but what does responsible sourcing truly mean to you if you were to define it?
For me, I mean, responsible sourcing means a closer relation with your suppliers, meaning that it's not it's more a partnership than a transactional relationship, where the buyer has a true objective of making the supplier better, more productive, with a better production. Sometimes people is looking for more quality. I think now, yes, the farmer is the weakest link of the chain, but this situation can turn because sometimes you want to buy, I don't know, cacao, and then one year there is not enough supply, and what happened? The prices will skyrocket. There will be a lot of issues, and because of that, there is also an interest to secure the producers, to make them more loyal, to help them become more resilient so that they are not going to be wiped out after an event, and that they adapt and become also more, that they can produce better, produce more optimized, so that at the end the entire chain is optimized, and the value for the consumer is there, and they have a competitive advantage against competition or others. So I think it's a win-win situation, where the relationship is less transactional and more partnership between buyer and supplier.
And you're completely right, because historically, there's always been, like you said, another origin, another supplier, somebody who could replace if really things got bad, right? But you saw, and this is why, now coming full circle to the beginning of the conversation where you said, we're seeing a lot of changes happening. I think for me personally, this is one of the bigger changes I've seen since COVID, right? Because in COVID, the supply chains were challenged. We saw empty shelves in the UK for the first time ever. Certain suppliers couldn't supply, maybe due to a climate event, or maybe also due to containers issues with logistics. And we're on the front lines of starting to see change, but it comes from a place of pain, right? And I think maybe what you're also trying to do is create a place of incentive. And I think that would be an interesting notion for me, is like you said, as you see more of these kind of joint partnerships, strategic partnerships between buyers and suppliers, that one also could co-incentivize some of that success. And some of that is happening naturally, like you said. I think we're seeing more and more coinciding desire to be successful, because a retailer having no food on the shelves is really truly detrimental, because that's the competitive landscape as well. If another retailer then has it, you're suddenly at risk. And there's that word again, risk. Yeah, so I would like to just go back. I mean, one quick question: is this what you wanted to do as a kid? I mean, I can't imagine young you was thinking, let me go and solve the problems of supply chains. What did you want to be as a kid?
I mean, I wanted to work in customs.
Really?
I don't know. I mean, I think I've moved through different wishes.
Yeah.
I never had like a clear idea, like a fixed in my mind idea. but it's more, you know, evolution, what I was aiming for. And something that I always had in the back of my mind is that I want to create value. It's like whatever I do, I want to create value. And this has been my North Star until now. Like
I
more
love
than the what is the outcome. Yeah.
No, I love that, and I think that I can see that in you. Just every time we talk, you keep bringing that true desire, and it's amazing because you're actually solving problems. You're not just speaking about solving problems. I mean, you have real case studies where you're actually solving problems. So, what words of wisdom would you give a young listener who maybe wants to follow a similar career path, or follow a bit in your footsteps? I mean, what were some right moves you made, at a certain point in your career, where you said, okay, that was my aha moment. That's something I pass on to others.
Well, I think it's always, think if not doing something, if you don't do something, if you will regret it. Like it's better to do something and fail that don't do and regret. I think
Yes.
this is one thing that is always top of mind. And the other thing is that when you are doing something, if this something has the possibility of impacting more people, then you are bringing more value. And at the end, you are being more successful as well. But the point is that the more people you can impact, the more value you bring. It's a bit like, again, Bill Gates, to close the circle,
Yeah.
and Microsoft. At the end, we all have, or many people has Microsoft an Office license. They are in everybody's household, impacting many lives and bringing a lot of value. So I think is a bit the same. Is thinking in solving large problems for many people.
Absolutely. No, I really appreciate that, and I think to start a startup, you have to absolutely have the do and don't be afraid to fail mentality. So, last question: what can we expect next from Ibisa Network? I mean, what's next in the pipeline? What should we be on the lookout for?
So our next months are extremely exciting. One of the core, one of our core markets is India, and we are going to be launching very interesting products in the next few months to the markets for agriculture and adjacent industries. So it will take us a lot of effort, but we are also starting to expand in West Africa.
Okay.
So we are looking to some specific commodities and some specific markets in the region, because we see a lot of need and potential here. So these two things will be taking most of our time in the next few months.
Okay, cool. West, yes. So what you just dive right into like the most notoriously risky areas and say, okay, how are we gonna fix this? And I think honestly, after speaking today, the name of the podcast will definitely have to have the word
Risk.
risk in it. Okay. No, but thank you so much, Maria. Any final words you'd like to leave with the audience?
When you think of insurance, it's not the most sexy product that you want to go out and buy. But when something happens, I can tell you from experience that you get very happy when you are insured, and especially if the insurance is as easy and smooth as the ones we are bringing to market. So yeah, I was not I was not that much understanding the market until I got into the market. of insurance, and now I'm a very convinced person.
Yeah, and okay, and final anecdote from my side. I mean, for those that don't know, my family has a farm in the United States, and I worked on the farm and dealt a lot with the insurances. And the one thing, and they actually, and I haven't told you this, Maria, they contracted me. Or didn't contract me. They just asked me, the insurance provider, to do a small blurb on why insurance is important. And at the end of this blurb, and they did all these recordings. They came out to the farm and they like filmed me in different areas talking about insurance and how important insurance is for agriculture. The one thing that they really emphasized is when I said, agri-insurance helps us sleep better at night. And they just like that became their slogan almost for this little stint, or this little blurb that I did, or it was almost like an advertisement, right? And it's really true. It does help you sleep better at night, and having good policies, I think, we're not going into a world that's getting any easier. I don't see climate events or climate anomalies becoming less in the future. I think they're going to maintain, or even get worse, right? More hailstorms, more frosts, more typhoons, like you said. I mean, anything is possible nowadays. So I agree with you completely. I think having good insurance providers, having good insurance partnerships, having good data technology, simple plans, because otherwise we might be facing a whole nother issue, right? Which is agribusinesses going insolvent, and potentially a food crisis, right?
Exactly.
I mean, that's the thing that we kind of overlook is, yeah, the economy and the way it's functioning and everything moving together. I mean, we're still subject to Mother Nature, and if Mother Nature, keeps on this path, then we're really opening ourselves up to vulnerability, financially, and then later potentially even for food security. So, yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I'm going to encourage everyone to look you up. We'll post the contact details for you in the comments, and also refer everyone to your website.
Perfect. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. This podcast has been brought to you by Tridge, the leading global intelligence and networking platform for agriculture. Visit us at www.tridge.com to find out more.